Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. We are talking about our shopping list app, and today we are wrapping up our Diffable data source introduction. We've done a lot last week with Diffable data source, but today we will actually go on to complete our shopping list app. Well, not complete, but as far as like reordering, we'll actually be reordering today. And the reordering, as I said last week, is a bit more complicated. There's various steps to reordering one item. For example, moving one item to a next section. There's various things you have to take into account. So we'll be wrapping up our shopping list app by doing reordering of items. For some review on Diffable data sources, if I go back to the glossary here, just for some review, where is it? Right here. So if you go back on the main GitHub page, the Diffable data source, the main README, there's some glossary terms. Let's just go over that before we continue. So to kick off, what we've been using is UI table view data source as opposed to UI table view Diffable data source as opposed to UI table view data source, which was pre-iOS 13. As of iOS 13, Apple introduced Diffable data sources, which is a more declarative API that allows us to work more flexible with less errors. There could still be errors, but with less errors than our older way of doing table views and stuff, especially when you're going back and forth between data and the state of data. The big thing that got introduced that makes data working with table views easier is this concept of a snapshot. So the snapshot is everywhere, is the place you go to get what is my current state of my data for my table view. So you query the snapshot, what is my data? I want to append things to my table view. I want to append a new section. Anywhere you go is to the snapshot. The snapshot becomes the source of truth for all data in your table view. Along the way, we came across item identifier, which is on the table view Diffable data source. There's two types. It's a generic class. You have the item identifier, you have the section identifier first, which is what is that section? Is it an enum? What type of enum is it? Is it a set of meals? Is it a set of grocery items? Whatever it is. So the section identifier has to be hashable. And the second part of that generic class is the item. What item for each section? That also needs to be hashable. Beneath data source, we have some concepts which we've seen. The data source has the snapshot. So anytime you want to get the snapshot, you query the data source for the snapshot. For example, if I have an instance called data source, I would say data source.snapshot to get a snapshot. And anytime you want to do anything else, you say data source snapshot, or rather data source apply snapshot, right? Which is that particular function here. You could choose to give it an animation if you pass in true, or not if you pass it false. There's also the item identifier, which we probably have seen already. Yeah, we have seen with deleting, because we queried the data source for a particular item at some index path using the item identifier. So all that is part of the data source class there. Next, we have the cell provider, which is the closure that, so we have no cell for row anymore here. What we have is cell for provider, which is a closure, and that closure takes in 3 arguments. The first argument is a pointer to the table view or the collection view. The next argument is the index path. And the last one is whatever item you're dealing with. Whatever your item identifier is that last argument. Going over to the snapshot, we've seen append sections, like append some section. You could have one section. In our first example with the countdown app, we had a main section, only one section in our enum, one case. But you could have many sections, as we saw in our particular shopping list app. You append items to a section. And you could also append items to a particular section if you're not dealing with the current section here. Today, we'll also see section identifiers. Like, hey, snapshot, get me all your sections, which is an array. You could delete items, which we've done before. Index of item, we'll see that today. Section index containing item. So give me the section for a particular item. Every item knows about its section. So you could just query, say, section identifier containing item. Is it part of that section? Yes, it is. And here we'll also see for our moving code today, for our reordering, we'll see insert some item after some other item. In our case, we'll see insert item, the source item, the thing we're moving, to either after the destination or before the destination. So that's what we'll also see today. Okay, so if you ever want to go back and look at terms there, just go back to the glossary. And if you want to go further in, there's more resources here at the end of the day. I highly recommend watching the WWDC 2019 Introduction to Data Sources. There's already more advances after this initial advance. So there's a 2020 more about data sources as well. But I'll start off by doing the 2019. That's where it all started with the new API. And there's other topics here as well. Like you could go read more about diffable data sources here on the Apple documentation. Make sure you really fully understand all what we've done, and it's a good review as well. And you could also look at data snapshot here. So there's plenty of materials to do even after we finish this particular lesson today. Any questions before we continue on? Questions? Okay, so what we'll be referring to back and forth as we work on this particular part here for our app, the reordering of items, is this diagram here. And also we wrote some steps out. But basically to give us an overview of where we headed, we have our table view that looks like this, minus the artistry here. But we have our table view that looks like this. The first section is section 0, and the item starts from 0, 1, 2. Again, section, item 0, or index 0. So even if you see an index path, the index path represents the section. An index path, again, for review, even with our older way of doing data sources, an index path represents the section. You could say index path.section, and you could also say index path.row. Okay? So what are we trying to do with moving items? So if somebody tries to grab item 0 and drop it exactly where it was before, we shouldn't do anything. So that's like scenario 1, where somebody's trying to move an item to itself. Scenario 2, somebody's trying to move an item after a particular destination, right? That's scenario 2. That's where that snapshot insert item after destination is gonna come in. And the third is I'm trying to insert some item. I'm trying to remove this particular row and insert it before some destination. So again, that's where that order method is gonna come in, insert some source item before some destination, okay? And the last scenario, I'm trying to move some row into a new section, or not even a new section, into a section without any index paths. In that particular section 2, there's nothing here. So I need to find a section and insert this new index path here. So there's 4 different scenarios for what we'll be doing with our reordering. And again, for purposes of not overwhelming anybody, rarely will you be going back into our code today and changing it. Most times, if you want to reorder something, the code we'll be writing is exactly what you want to do. So that entire data source becomes reusable. Everybody with me?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, cool. Very good. All right, so let's get started. Go to your project. We have our shopping list app. If you do not have it yet, just navigate to it while I'm making the font bigger here. All right, cool. And let's run our app and see what we have. So this is where we left off. Actually, before we continue, I think we have price, but we don't show price here, right? So we have a price of an item, but we're not showing it currently. So let's go fix that first. So let's navigate over to our item feed view controller and go to our cell provider here, right? So navigate to the cell provider, closure. Again, this code is very similar to what you would do in your cell for row at index path. So here we have an item name, but it would be nice if we also have the price. We have a price of the item. So for now, let's just put in the price of the item. So right on line 39 here, I have cell text label.text item.name. I'll put a new line and I'll put price. And price is whatever the price is, item.price. Let me make this smaller. Okay, cool. So here we have the item name. We created a new line, so it breaks the line, the string. And then now we have a new line with the item price. Let's see what that looks like. Did I run it? Oh, can anybody tell me what they think is happening here?
Is it the height of
The height,
cell?
yes, indeed. It's running off screen right now. So we need to make good observation. So right now, our price is somewhere over here because everything is on one line. So we could do one thing here. We could just say cell.text label number of lines equals to 0. Because the default is 1, remember? So now we're going to say 0 lines. So it should now render our price. Does everybody now see the price?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Very good. One last thing before we stop here. My 140 could be a bit better. The rest are okay, but my .0, I could make that better by using string format. So let's use string format here. Let's just say price equal to string. So I'll use string format, initializer. So I have my constant called price. It has a string initializer. I'm going to go ahead and type in format. Okay, I type in format, I press enter. The format, it expects some sort of format for the first argument. And the second argument is whatever you're trying to format. In our case, we're trying to format the price. So in our literal here, in our string literal, we could put a format, some type of format. In our case, we want to have 2 decimal places. So we start off with a percentage sign dot 2 decimal places, floating number. Okay, so that price will now just change it and put it in here. Instead of saying item.price, now we have a formatted price. Actually, let's just call this formatted price so it reads better. Price. And now let's run it again. And now we have our 140.00 and everything looks good. Any questions? Okay, cool. So now let's see what our editing looks like. If I edit, I don't have the handles to move any rows yet. So let's work on that. Again, we do not have the handles here to like drag anything. I can't drag any rows. So let's give the dragging functionality. Let us go to our data source.swift class. Go to the data source. In the data source here, we return true to say, hey, we could edit a row. We could delete a row. Next, let's go ahead and implement. So how many methods we have so far? We have header in section, we have can edit row, and we have commit editing style, which actually does the deletion logic. And next, let's go ahead and say can. So just type in can move. So type in can move and press enter. What does this function do? Well, it says, can I move some row at some index path? In our case, we'll just simply return true, saying, hey, I could go ahead and move. It's fine. So if I run the app again, and we put our table view in an edit state, we get the handles. Does everybody have the handles here on the right side?
Yeah. Yes.
So now I could drag, right, correctly? Yes? You could drag and drop?
Yep.
All right. You could drag and drop, but this is not done because this is going to crash the app if I was to try to add something here. If I click done and I go try to add something new here, for example, phone cover, it's $15, and I say technology, this is going to crash our app, right? Because we haven't told the data source exactly what we're trying to do. Okay, so we have more work to do. The UI is there, but we have more work to do. So go back to your data source. Again, just confirm that you do have the handles. That's all we have right now. So now let's go back to our data source. So step one is done here for reordering. Reorder steps. That just handles the UI. Do I have access to the handle? Yes, I do. Next, let's go ahead and implement the method where we'll actually be doing the logic for our reordering. Okay, so start typing move. So move, just start typing move and press enter. And you should have move row at some source to some destination. Does everybody have that?
Yes.
Yes, all right, very good. Very, very good. All right, let us have the fun starting now. Okay, so we all implemented this method here. Again, most of the code we'll be writing in here. We won't really be changing that much with any table view we work with. But for now, let's go ahead and start. Okay, so first let's get the source item. Okay, we don't know what the source item is yet. Let's go ahead and get the source item. So here we'll say guard, make sure there's a source item equal to, how do we get the source item? Well, we'll get a source item using item identifier. Remember we went over that a while ago here. So item identifier is part of the data source class. So item identifier for some index path, which will get you back the item. So item identifier for source index path, right? Source index path we have here. The two things we'll be working with here is the source index path and the destination index path. Right now, we have the source item. The thing that you drag in, where am I? This source, the first row I drag is the source. Where I'm going to is the destination. Everybody with me?
Yes.
All right, cool. So here we have the source item, great. One of our scenarios, we'll take care of it really early. So I'll actually put that in uppercase letters. Scenario 1 is move to self, or attempting to move to self. And for us to make sure this is not the case, we'll use a guard statement here. We'll say, make sure that the source index path is not equal to the destination index path. Let's return here. I forgot my return here too. Just build. Okay, good. So now we took care of scenario 1. If this is the case, I'm trying to move a row to itself, just return. Don't do anything. Awesome. Next, let's get the destination item. How can we get a destination item?
Destination index path.
Destination index path. So here we'll say let destination item equal to item identifier for destination index path. Thank you. And now we have an item. We could verify this is an item. We could just option click on it, and we have an item, our item type. Awesome. Next, let's get the current snapshot. We get the current snapshot by just creating a mutable property here, a mutable variable called snapshot. And here we'll just say self.snapshot. Again, self.snapshot here is immutable. So we're creating a variable to be able to change it. Great, let's keep going. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work, well, handle scenario 2, and 3. So now we're handling scenario 2 and 3. We'll say if let destination item equal to, so now we're unwrapping this destination item here. If destination item does have a value, then we're doing scenario 2 or 3. Then we are doing either moving after a destination or moving before a destination. Okay, there's an item, there's a destination item. We're doing one of those two things. And the last scenario, handle scenario 4, no index path, destination. Great. All right, we have everything down, ready to go. All right, so let's go ahead and handle scenario 2 and 3. We have the destination item. Now we need to get the source index and the destination index, which is different from index path, okay? The source index tells me what is the row. Is it 0? Is it 2, right? The index path has both the section and the row. The index itself just tells me what row am I dealing with, okay? So now get the source index and the destination index. So here we'll say if let source index equal to, here we're gonna use the snapshot dot index of item. I just showed us earlier in the overview in the glossary. So this returns us some index for some item. Give it an item, it will tell you what row it is. So here we'll say index path of item, and this is source item. So here we get into things. We get in the destination index as well. Destination index is snapshot.index of item, destination item, and build. Make sure everything is built in here. The warnings are fine, we'll come to them, but make sure you have no errors. And I want to pause here to make sure everybody's up to date with the code.
Alex, I have a question.
Yep.
You said that the source index and the destination index just give you the row, not the section?
Yeah, this will just
correct?
give us, this will just give me this number 0 or 1 or 2, whatever row I'm dealing with.
Why can't we just use the index path itself instead of using this index of item?
Just to make sure that we unwrapping the indices, that way we just use them directly. Because those are optionals.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so we'll be able to use them because later here, we have to use them to figure out which one is, like, is my destination index greater than my source index in order to find out if it's going before or after the particular destination.
Okay. I'm still not understanding why we can't just say source index path dot row or destination index path dot row.
Row. Where am I? Actually, where am I? Remember, we're trying to get after this item here. We have the item. We want to find out what index it is. That's why we're doing that here. Because the index path itself is not going to give me the exact item I want. So here I have the destination item. I say, give me your index, whatever index you're at. And here I have the source item. Give me whatever index you're on.
Okay.
And later we'll be using, we need to figure out what is the destination, what order. Inserted. The source item.
Alex,
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming we're gonna use, you could get the section from the item, correct?
You could get the section from the item.
Because how would you know?
Yeah, later we're gonna do that.
Okay.
For this particular scenario, I think.
It's in scenario 2 and 3. You could insert across sections.
In this scenario 2 and 3 is the same section.
Oh, okay.
Well, the same section for if it's after, and different sections for if it's before.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So if we go back here, so I could take 0 up here and I could put it down here. And vice versa, I could take 0 and bring it up to section 0.
Okay.
Yep. But for the after, for scenario 2, it's only within the first section, within the same section.
So wait, so there's no scenario aside from number 3
Number 3.
that looks like it's a cross section.
This is a cross section, yeah. This is
Okay.
from 0 up to section 0. Section 1
What
to
if-
section 0.
What if you want to do the reverse of section 3 then?
Section 3. I could take 0 and I could put it down in section 1.
Yeah.
Yes, that could work as well with the code we're writing. I just
Uh.
didn't draw everything out here.
Just making sure.
Yep. Actually, it's here. You see the yellow one? That's kind of it. But there is a section. You see the yellow scenario 4?
Mm-hmm.
Scenario 4 is kind of like that, but assuming scenario 4 has a row existing already,
Mm-hmm.
that would work.
Uh,
All right. All right, so what order, let's figure out what order we're gonna insert the thing in. We'll create a variable, we'll call it isAfter. And isAfter, we're using those 2 indices we have to find out is destination index greater than source index. So if the destination index is greater than the source index, and snapshot, the section, now we're looking at the section. So snapshot section identifier, type snapshot dot section identifier containing item. So this is the function we're after, section identifier for some item. And here for the item, in our case, we want to put in source item. I want to find out if I'm working in the same section here. So if the source item section is the same, so equal, oh man, I have to go to a new line. You guys are probably better formatted on your computers because you have a smaller font. But on mine, I have to go to a new line here. So snapshot dot section identifier containing destination item. Let me build this to make sure that builds. Okay, cool. Let me go through this code. So I'm finding out if the destination index is greater than the source index. If it is, and I'm looking at the same section, meaning I'm moving in the same section, meaning I'm doing scenario 2 here. If this is the same section, and in that case, destination index is 2, is greater than the source index, which is 0, then I'm moving in the same section. So what I'm doing is after. I'm going to insert after destination. So this becomes a true or false evaluation. And then we'll go into actually doing the scenarios. So scenario 2 first, and then we'll do scenario 3. So scenario 2, well, first of all, don't forget to do that step. Delete the source item. First delete the source item. Because if we don't do that, our app will definitely crash. So first delete the source item from the snapshot.
Alex.
Yep.
We can just reuse this code, right?
Yeah, that's what I said many times because trust me, that's what I said many times to make sure that we're not overwhelming ourselves here. I wanted to show it as opposed to just like having us just, hey, the code works and that's it. I want to explain that this once so that we have it. Does that make sense, Luba?
Yeah, sure.
All right, very good. Okay, so, and hey, who knows, somebody could ask you to explain it to them at some point. First, delete the source item from the snapshot. All right, well, how does that work? Well, snapshot.delete items. And here we're just deleting the source item. So that's gone. And then now we go into scenario 2. Scenario 2, so if isAfter, or what we want to do here is say snapshot.insert, which I showed earlier. Insert, we have 2 functions here. We're going to be using insert items after the destination, in that case, after item. It's also an array of items. Passing source item here, this is what we insert in. So you could very easily see, you could insert many items. It doesn't just have to be one. And after what? Well, after the destination item, which we found here earlier. Where is it? Destination item here. Great. So this is scenario 2 taken care of. Scenario 3, else. Sorry about breaking it up here. Normally I'll put my else statement here, but I just want to make sure that we have the documentation properly documented here. So now we'll just say else scenario 2 snapshot dot insert before same array source item, and before item is destination item here. Again, make sure you build and you have no errors. And please make sure you have this step here on 72, because that'll be inconsistent data. And moving on to the last scenario, scenario 4, which is an else statement here. In that case, it's saying if I have no destination item, that means I'm going to a section without any index path. So first, let's get the section for the destination index path. And here we could just say destination section identifier equal to snapshot. Remember we had that array of sections earlier that I showed. So here we could say section identifiers, which is an array. It knows what type of section it is or what the type is. The type is a category. So here it just returns us all the sections in our shopping list. And now we want to get the section, the actual section for that index path. So now we'll say destination index path dot section. So that queries the section, or sorry, the index path for a section. We have the section. And also we don't have to forget to delete the source item before inserting it. So same syntax, snapshot dot delete items and source item. And the last step we want to insert the item in the new section. Anybody want to give it a shot? So insert, or rather append the source item at the section.
Snapshot dot append items.
Snapshot dot append. You said items.
Oh, item.
So because no, items is fine, but we're using two section, right?
Okay.
So here, thank you, Cassandra. So here we'll say source item, and the section we appending it to is the section we just found here on line 91. So this is destination index section identifier. Or let's just call this destination section. That's okay. All right, so this is the scenario 4 where I'm trying to remove a row here and put it into a new section that doesn't have any index path. In other words, there's no index path to say, is it going after or before? There's nothing there. This is a new index, a section without an index path. So we find a section that belongs to that index path. In that case, it's destination section. We delete the item first before inserting it, because remember, that's going to cause inconsistency because it's all hashable. And lastly, we'll append that item. Again, it could be many items at that section. Okay. What's the one thing we are missing here?
Do we have to apply any of those?
Yes, we have to apply this. Very good. So at the end here, we will apply this. Oh, what is that? We will apply. Okay, sorry, I'm outside. I'm outside the function. Yes, I am. That's why this is happening. I will apply my snapshot and make sure that you're saying animated false here, because you'll get a crash if you don't do that. That could be a bug. That could be fixed, being fixed at some point. But for now, make sure you say false when you reorder in here. Do not animate it. Everybody with me? Apply changes to the source. Let me make this smaller so I could kind of go through this.
I assume you would get a crash there because there's no animation necessary since you're handling it yourself as a user.
Yeah, as a user, you're handling it and there's no animation, but that could just be like an API constraint at the moment. But for now, just make sure that you're saying, oh, that's too small. Make sure that you're saying false.
Okay.
All right. Dark. Is this okay? Is this too small?
That's all right.
Okay. All right, let's go through this again. So almost got the whole function online, not really, all the comments. So the one function we implemented today, again, as Luba was asking, are we writing that function every day? No. This is one thing I wanted to go over, at least this one time, so that we understand how the parts are moving. And this code is coming exactly from Apple's sample code from the WWDC 2019 video I told you guys to take a look at. So please watch the video. They do not go through the code, but just watch the video because there's other things there as well. But this code is coming from that exact sample app that they provided. So to kick off, we want to reorder. We want to reorder two rows, or we want to reorder a row, basically a row. We want to find out the source item because obviously we have a source item we're dealing with. Is there a source item, right? Find the source item. Next step, we said scenario one, which is if I'm moving a row to itself, what am I doing? I'm just returning because in that case, the source index path is not equal to the destination. If it's not equal to the destination index path, if the two of them are equal, simply return. If the two of them are equal, simply return. We are moving to ourselves. Continuing on, we get the destination item. The item I'm going to has an index path. It has more information I want. So I get it using the item identifier. Here, I have the destination item. Next, I get the snapshot, which we'll need later to do many things along the way, and also to apply the changes to the data source. There's two scenarios where I'm going to a destination. If I'm going to a destination and it has an item, great, I'm going either scenario 2 or scenario 3. If I'm going to a destination and it doesn't have an item, there's no items there, then that means I'm doing scenario 4, which is I'm going from row 1 here at section 0 to section 2, which doesn't have any items. Okay, so taking care of scenario 2 and 3, we get the source index and the destination index. The reason why we do that here is to get a Boolean value that indicates are we inserting an item before or after a destination. We make sure to delete the items or the item that we are coming from in both scenarios, in here and also on line 93. Make sure to delete them. And then based on the Boolean value, like, am I moving an item in the same section? If I'm moving item 0 to item 2, then I'm moving it in the same section. So this is going to return true. If this is true, then go ahead and insert the item I'm coming from after some destination. In that case, I'm going from 0 to 2, or 0 in between 1 and 2. Great, I'm doing scenario 2. Otherwise, I'm doing scenario 3. I'm inserting an item or items before the destination. In that case, I'm doing scenario 3 here. I'm coming from a different section altogether, right? I could be coming from section 2 if there's items here. So this is outside of my section. I'm going from 0 and I'm putting it between 0 and 1 here. So in that case, it's before some destination. For scenario 4, What are we after? Well, we after the section. What section am I going to? I could find out what section I'm going to by using the section identifiers array. If I was to run this section identifiers function on this particular table view, I would be getting 3 items in my array. In that case, I query the destination index, the section, I get the section I'm going to. Don't forget to delete the items. And lastly, append the item, the source item or items, to the new section. In that case, append it to section 2. And lastly, don't forget to apply the changes. If you do not do this, nothing, it's like you did nothing. So remember to apply the changes. So that should be it, unless we missed something. And then
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
What if, let's going back to the diagram.
Going back to the diagram.
So what if section 1 were to have, let's say, 5 items, correct?
Yep.
And you select the 5th item in section 1 and then you try to move it to, let's say, to the bottom of section 0. How would that work based on the code we have?
Based on the
Because, yeah,
Uh-huh.
because the way
it
it
would do
works.
it would do a new index, right? Because there's no index there.
Yeah, okay.
It would be a new index. That's the same scenario. It would still handle scenario 4 where there's no item at that index, actually. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because right now I have 3 items. If I'm trying to insert a 4th item at index 3, it doesn't
3.
exist, so it would go to scenario 4.
What if it was index 1 in section 0? What scenario is that?
Then that's fine. If the index is fine, then it's not going to be a new index. In that case, it would be before destination.
Okay.
Very good. Good questions. One of the things I could tell you, if you really want to delve down into it, you could put print statements once we finish and see how it works based on moving things around.
Okay.
Yep. Very good. All right. Let's run this and let's see what we have. All right. So if I move, let me move something to my shopping cart. So move try shoes to my shopping cart here and click done. That's not enough because we did that earlier, but the big test is, can I add a new item without crashing my app? Let me hold my breath. Other, this is 17. I want to put this in triathlon. And it is in triathlon without crashing my